Welcome back to Walt's Vinyl Albums, where we dive deep into the stories behind music legends and their timeless albums. Today I'm shining the spotlight on Cyndi Lauper and her groundbreaking 1983 album, She's So Unusual. Now, before I dive into the She's So Unusual album, I want to review the differences of the 1970s recordings and today's recordings. Many consider music recordings from the 1970s to be superior to today's because of the advancements in analog recording technology at the time, including high-quality studio setups with large budgets, better mixing consoles like Neve and API, more tracks on tape machines allowing for better separation, and a focus on capturing the natural sound of musicians playing live, often with less digital manipulation compared to modern recording practices. This resulted in a richer, more dynamic sound with greater sonic detail. Recording studios in the 1970s utilized top-of-the-line analog equipment, such as high-quality microphones, tape machines with more tracks, and sophisticated mixing consoles, which led to a fuller sound with greater dynamic range. I can tell you with certainty that the Shure SM58 microphone, which was introduced in September of 1966, was designed for professional vocal use in studios, live performances, and sound reinforcement. It has more clarity than the Shure SM7B microphone, which was introduced in 2001. It replaced the SM7A, which was released in 1999. As they try to make things better for digital recording, they exclude the clarity that drives the emotions in the human brain. Something is missing, kind of like AI. Artists often had time to record and mix albums in the 70s, allowing for greater experimentation and refinement in the studio. Many 70s recordings prioritized capturing the energy of live performances with musicians playing together in the same room, contributing to a more natural sound. Compared to modern recording where digital editing is prevalent, 70s recordings relied less on digital manipulation, resulting in a perceived authenticity. Criticisms of modern recording practices are over-reliance on digital processing. Modern recording often heavily utilizes digital effects and manipulation, which can sometimes sound artificial or overly processed. Faster production schedules. The pressure to produce music quickly can sometimes lead to less attention to detail in the recording process. Focus on commercial appeal. Some argue that today's music industry prioritizes producing commercial viable music over artistic expression, impacting the overall sound quality. This fact alone destabilizes a band's relationship with one another, and a lot of times they split up. Now let's get to Cyndi Lauper's She's So Unusual album. Cyndi Lauper was born in Brooklyn in 1953. She was raised Catholic, yet her parents divorced when she was young. Lauper loved to listen to music and began playing guitar and writing her own songs at the age of 12. As Lauper grew into her musical identity, she started experimenting with fashion. She loved dyeing her hair in bright colors and wearing unusual clothing. She stood out from the crowd, something that her peers did not really appreciate. Lauper was mercifully bullied for her unconventional style. Her struggles did not end there. Lauper was far from an excellent student and was eventually expelled from her high school. She then ran away from home at 17 to escape her abusive stepfather. She journeyed to Canada, where she spent 2 contemplative weeks in the woods with her dog Sparkle. Lauper eventually made her way down to Vermont and began taking art classes at Johnson State College before she entered the music scene. Does this sound familiar? In the early 1970s, Lauper performed as a vocalist with various other cover bands. One called Doc West covered disco songs as well as Janis Joplin. That's right. This is the gal that loved to sing Janis Joplin and lived a life almost like hers. A later band, Flyer, was active in the New York metropolitan area, singing hits by bands including Bad Company, Jefferson Airplane, and Led Zeppelin. Although Lauper was performing on stage, she was not happy singing covers. In 1977, I am unsure if most of you know this, but Cyndi Lauper almost didn't become a singer because in that year, Lauper damaged her vocal cords and was forced to stop singing. She was told that she'd never be able to sing again, but she regained her ability under the guidance of her vocal coach, Katie Agresta. In 1978, Lauper formed a band called Blue Angel with saxophonist John Turry, Steve Masarski, manager of the Allman Brothers Band. He heard one of their tapes and became Blue Angel's manager. After a commercially disappointing album release, Blue Angel broke up and fired Masarski. He sued the band for $80,000 and catapulted Lauper into bankruptcy. To make matters worse, her vocal cords were again damaged. However, she regained her voice in a relatively short period of time. To make ends meet, she worked several odd jobs and sang at night. In 1981, Lauper was signed by manager David Wolf after he saw her perform in a New York City bar. Wolf secured her a deal with Portrait Records, the company that would soon release She's So Unusual. She's So Unusual first made waves with the album's iconic single, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Everybody loved that song. The song became wildly popular and eventually reached the number 2 spot on the Billboard Hot 100. Girls Just Want to Have Fun became a global hit and remains one of Lauper's most recognizable songs today. Lauper released 6 singles from the album, including Time After Time, which rose to the top of the charts in the U.S. and several other countries. The song's layered depth and heartfelt lyrics continued to resonate with listeners. The album includes 5 cover songs, including The Brain's new wave track, Money Changes Everything, number 27 on the Billboard, and Prince's When You Were Mine. She's So Unusual quickly earned itself a spot in the new wave canon. The album is ultimately defined by Lauper's unique and expansive vocals and punk sound. Her voice transcends time and is simultaneously distinctly 80s. Lauper embodies the loud, bold, and pioneering spirit of the era's music scene. The cover of She's So Unusual captures Lauper's identity as a true artist. On it, Lauper is wearing a second-hand prom dress from a vintage store where she worked. Annie Leboyevich photographed Lauper in motion, twisting her in fishnets in front of a wax museum on Coney Island. Lauper confidently carried her artistic style with her as she rose through the ranks of musical stardom. She's So Unusual was greeted with critical and popular acclaim. It debuted on the Billboard 200 and remained on the list for 77 weeks. Lauper was nominated for 6 Grammys, including the Album of the Year, and won in the categories of Best New Artist and Best Recording Package. She's So Unusual was certified platinum and continues to be relevant. She's So Unusual is ranked 184 on the Rolling Stones list 500 Greatest Albums of All Time after debuting at 494 on the list in 2003. Following the album's success, Lauper went on to work on several other musical projects. She also became heavily invested in advocating for different groups that were passionate about their cause. As for her musical legacy, Lauper carved out a space for lyrical depictions of womanhood that were previously unexplored or accepted. Her vibrant punk aesthetic continues to influence artists and fans around the world. Lauper is at once emblematic of an era and powerfully timeless. She's So Unusual introduced her to the world outside of New York's clubs and bars and marked her as one of the 20th century's most recognizable voices. I want to thank you for joining me today as I explored the story behind Cyndi Lauper's album, She's So Unusual. Next time on Walt's Vinyl Albums, I talk about the iconic Bryan Adams and his timeless album, Reckless. While Adams was relatively happy with his albums up to this point, he was asked, "Where's the rock?" This led to the creation of Summer of '69, Adams' nostalgic rock hit, one of the album's defining pieces. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the legends of music. As always, remember to spin those albums loudly and proudly, and I will see you again soon.